That's maybe you could have some folks share with each other. Or here, you could take, actually, you could take mine. I have a digital copy. Yep, I do. Yep. Okay. So, Rob, would you like to begin? And,
Sure.
and welcome everyone. We need to see, everyone needs to see you too. There we go.
Yes.
Do you want to stand or?
Camera shine.
You want to turn towards everyone?
Yes. Meditation. We want to welcome each of you, whether you're just beginning, have been walking the path for years, your lesson matters, and we're grateful that we warmly welcome people of every age, heritage, religious background. We welcome people of all sexual orientations and gender identities, all socioeconomics, and all abilities. We also want to acknowledge the fullness and richness of the world, including dimensions that we may not have named out loud, and to honor the many intersecting ways we each experience the world. We gather to practice and study, not just for our own awakening, but for the benefit of all beings and this living earth. We recognize the suffering caused by prejudice, power, privilege, and systems of oppression. And together we aspire to do no harm. We commit ourselves to dismantling barriers that create separation and suffering, knowing that our own liberation is inseparably tied to the liberation of all. With mindfulness and loving kindness as our guides, we work to create a space where everyone feels respected, safe, and truly welcomed. We recognize that this is a dynamic, evolving process that requires continual listening, learning, care, especially toward voices that have been historically marginalized. Our shared leadership embraces the responsibility to foster policies and practices that support true inclusion. And we know that it takes the heartfelt engagement of every Sangha member to help create and sustain a community that reflects the Dharma as well, that we aspire to embody. We also pause to honor and acknowledge the indigenous people of this region whose ancestral lands we now occupy. These include the Willamette, Clackamas, Multnomah, Tualatin, and many tribes and bands now part of the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde. We acknowledge the Cowlitz, the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde, the Siletz, and the many Native communities who have lived along the Willamette and Columbia rivers and throughout the Cascades since time immemorial. We remember that Portland is still home to many diverse Native communities. We honor all Indigenous peoples, past, present, and future, and offer our deep gratitude for their continued presence, wisdom, and resilience. Land acknowledgements are just one small step toward disrupting the legacy of colonization. They are the beginning of a much larger conversation, a call to right relationship, learning, and action. We also acknowledge the labor and sacrifice of those who came to these lands under vastly different circumstances. We recognize settlers and immigrants, including Japanese and Chinese laborers who helped build the infrastructure of this country. And those who were brought here involuntarily, people forcibly taken through the transatlantic slave trade. Paid labor formed the foundation of the American economy. This living acknowledgement of Black labor is a statement of respect, grief, and gratitude. We the African people who were enslaved by white colonizers and subjected to brutal generational exploitation. We honor the countless lives lost during the Middle Passage and many who were beaten or lynched, and all those who continue to suffer while courageously fighting for freedom and justice today. To speak this history is to acknowledge its ongoing impact. It is a call to increase awareness and to honor the enduring contributions of Black Americans, especially in the face of a history that has too often been distorted and silenced. In addition, we recognize the ancestors of our Buddhist tradition. Buddhism in the United States has deep roots in the immigrant communities of Asia. Following the California Gold Rush of 1849 and the Immigration Act of 1965, large numbers of people from China, Japan, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Burma, Cambodia, and Korea built their Buddhist faith and practice with them. Many of these early Buddhist communities faced racism, discrimination, and cultural erasure, and yet they persisted. Their teaching and resilience continue to shape the Dharma landscape in North America. It is of particular importance to name and honor these ancestors, especially those of the Theravada tradition, known as the School of the Elders. Theravadins have preserved the teachings of the Buddha through the Pali Canon for over 2,000 years, offering us a path grounded in insight, ethics, and liberation. We express our deep gratitude to the immigrant communities, foundation teachers, past and present. We walk this path because of their generosity. And we have some community guidelines and sharing just for space. We do aspire to be a scent-free space for those with sensitivities and allergies. So we encourage that. For those with neurodiversities or anyone seeking quiet, we offer peaceful guidance through the doors behind the elevator. And please leave the door propped open if you step outside. If you need additional support, feel comfortable, engage. To feel comfortable and engage. Please don't cultivating a space of safety and inclusion. Racist, homophobic, transphobic, non-binary, exclusionary, ableist, or other harmful language is not accepted. At Sangha, we gently call each other in when something painful is said, supporting both protection and learning. We invite you to introduce yourself using your pronouns as a practice of respect and inclusion for all gender identities. Pronouns are an important part of someone's expression and may include combinations like he, him, she, her, they, them, or others. We acknowledge that mistakes happen and encourage compassion and forgiveness as we all learn together. As Dr. Beatrice Berry reminds us in this paraphrase, one of the most powerful tools we have at our disposal is the tool of diversity. When I opened my mind and heart to the diversity of the world, I opened the avenues to succeed. I think there's nothing more beautiful than diversity of thought as well. The best thinking comes from many people. So thank you for being here, and your presence is a gift. So we appreciate that.
Thank you, Rob. Couldn't figure out how to get the static to stop. There we go. How's that? Can everyone hear me okay? All right, wonderful. If at any point in time you are not able to hear me, you can just kind of cup your hand up to your ear and I'll know to try to increase the volume, my volume, or the control settings, the settings. And for those of you on Zoom, how's my volume? Margaret, Sandra, is it good? Okay, perfect. Great. Yeah, so today's our session will be recorded. For those of you on Zoom, it would be spotlight on me, so you won't it won't show your face. But if you do share, we'll be able to capture your voice. This is so that those who cannot make it can come back and watch it on a YouTube channel. But I want to just take a moment for us to just be in this space together. And how about we just turn to the people on our right and left and take a moment to say hello, say your name and what brought you here. And yeah, what had you come onto this path? Because today I'm talking about this path. So yeah, turn to your neighbors in front of you, behind you, to your side. So we'll take a few minutes. And Sandra and Margaret, feel free to, if you want to chat with each other. and Kimberly. Feel free to move around the room if you want to connect to those who you're not able to and say hello. Yes. Yeah. Don't be shy, Jonathan. Okay, good to see you.
Have you been meditating for a long time?
All right, we'll start to wrap up. So I'd like to begin by us together reading this the refuges that is from the Manzanita village. And this is the 5 trainings of the body, mind, and heart. So it's originally taken from the 5 precepts, which is in the Buddhist tradition, it's the how we practice ethical conduct. And so in order to honor the lineage of the Buddhist teachings and the aspiration of all beings for happiness and freedom, we'll take the following 3 refuges. And let me share this on the screen for those of you on Zoom. So we'll do a call and response. So I'll read like one verse and then you all will read it back and then I'll read the next part. So we'll just break it up into little chunks, okay? And as we recite this, I invite you to really get in touch with the heart of the words. You know, what does it mean to take refuge? You know, it's this, you know, going to, you know, I go for refuge, or it's a homage, it's a coming home, it's a return to something. So oftentimes we, you know, we take refuge in so many things throughout the day, whether it's our phones or our work or but this is that true refuge, the refuge that really has us feel a sense that we have arrived, that we've come home to something that is, you know, beyond what we're used to in this, in the sense pleasure world, right? So this is that true refuge. In search of freedom for myself and all beings, in search of freedom for myself and all beings, I go for refuge in the Buddha and the possibility of developing a more awakened heart. In search of freedom for myself and all beings, I go for refuge in the Dharma and resolve that I will deepen my experience and understanding of its wisdom that is wider than all the oceans. In search of freedom for myself and all beings, I go for refuge in the Sangha in order to create the conditions of peace, kindness, and interconnection in our progression towards freedom in all of our communities. I go for refuge in this triple gem of our spiritual practice for the benefit and liberation of myself, my loved ones, those who I do not know or have difficulty with, and all things in all worlds. Friends. Now just taking a moment to notice how that lands. What stood out for you? What resonated? What moved your heart or mind? And with the intention to provide safety and peace in our time of practice together, the 5 householder precepts are taken as worded by the Manzanita village. So we'll do a call and response here. Aware of the violence in the world and of the power of non-violent resistance. I stand in the presence of the ancestors, the earth, and future generations. And vow to cultivate the compassion that seeks to protect each living being. Aware of the poverty and greed in the world, and of the intrinsic abundance of the earth. I stand in the presence of the ancestors, the earth, and future generations. And vow to cultivate the simplicity, gratitude, and generosity that have no limits. Aware of the abuse and lovelessness in the world, and of the healing that is made possible when we open to love. I stand in the presence of the ancestors, the earth, and future generations. And vow to cultivate respect for the beauty and erotic power of our bodies. Aware of the falsehood and deception in the world. And of the power of living and speaking the truth. I stand in the presence of the ancestors, the earth, and future generations. And vow to cultivate the ability to listen and clarity and integrity in all I communicate by my words and actions. Aware of the contamination and desecration of the world. And of my responsibility for life as it manifests through me. I stand in the presence of the ancestors, the earth, and future generations. And vow to cultivate discernment and care in what I take into my body and mind. So we'll begin with a lightly guided 30 minutes of meditation. And feel free to find a posture that works for you. So whether that's sitting or lying down on the sofa or on the floor or standing, or maybe even finding a little strip where you can walk back and forth. I want you to really consider what your body needs from you right now. Maybe inviting in a little bit of movement, stretching the neck, rolling the shoulders. And knowing that the cultivation of mindfulness doesn't need to look, any particular way. It's what works for you today. So really modifying the practice to fit what would be most supportive for you. And stillness and steadiness comes by way of us really being able to offer ourselves this kind and loving attention. Sometimes we get caught in things looking a certain way, that we should be a certain way, or our mind should be a certain way. So really I invite you today to just notice what would right now offer me a sense of comfort and ease and stability. And feel free to grab a pillow over there if you need it for your back, or to prop up your feet. And at any point in time during this practice, if you need to shift and change posture, you're welcome to do so. If you need to stand quietly, do that, or walk. And this practice is about including everything that's here, including everything. So when we hear sounds, sound could actually be what calls us back to the present moment, so that everything that's here is welcomed and allowed. And we also give ourselves permission to be as we are. So if the body feels restless or uneasy, or there's discomfort, that can we allow the body to be that way? And we're just acknowledging it. So mindfulness is this way of paying attention, this wise attention. And wise attention is free from judgment, free from assessment. It's just here, with this loving kindness, with compassion and patience. And also this determination that, there are maybe a long list of things to do, or a day that has passed and there's still some residual energy that we've carried into this moment. That can we feel that energy but not get caught in the story and the details of what has already been done and what's gone, what has passed. So as you begin to settle into your posture, and maybe removing your glasses or loosening your clothing in whatever way feels comfortable. I'm getting curious about what does my body need from me to be at ease, softening the shoulders, maybe softening the spine or straightening out the spine. So discerning for yourself what is supportive, what will generate this quality of mind that is alert, awake, and relaxed. And I'll offer a few anchors here and I invite you to try it out. See which anchor is simple and maybe even easy for you to be with. So the first anchor is anchoring to the contact points on the body. Notice if your feet is touching the ground, feel the weight or the pressure of where the feet makes contact with the floor. Notice the bend in the knees. Notice where the sitting bone is pressing against the chair. Feel the weight, the heaviness of the body. Or maybe your back touching the back of the seat. Notice where your hands are resting. There's a body sitting here. There's a body in its posture. Notice where you often hold tension in the body. Is there a possibility to soften? Allow the body to relax as best as you can. The back might be upright but not uptight. Relax the shoulders, the neck. Loosen the grip in the hands. Notice all of the tiny muscles in the face. Relax the jaw. Lips are touching. And maybe allowing the eyes to close if that feels safe and comfortable. Or if your eyes are open, you can choose a focal point. Softly gazing at that focal point. Maybe hearing sounds in the space or outside the window. You can anchor into sounds. The sound of my voice. Even the sound of silence. That can be an anchor too. So we're tuning into sounds. sounds calling us back to the present moment. And if the breath is available for you today, you can also choose the breath as an anchor. Breathing in and out through the nose, if that feels supportive. Feel the energy wind of the breath throughout the body. Notice the breath rising and falling in the chest. The breath expanding and contracting in the belly. How often do we take time to pay attention to the breath and to just notice the quality of each in-breath and each out-breath? Directly experiencing the breath. And in these last couple minutes, I'd like to invite you to bring your attention to the heart center, or maybe a place in the body that could use your loving kindness. Taking a moment to acknowledge what's there, what's occupying the heart, or what part of the body needs some attention and care. Can you send this energy of love, of kindness to that place within you? Or maybe it's to a thought or an emotion that needs to be acknowledged, that could use your kindness and your goodness. And we'll end the practice with the loving kindness songs. You're welcome to continue sitting if you'd like to. Just let this be sort of a subtle body practice. Or maybe you can also join me in this song. There's a card that was passed out. If you didn't get a card, there's one at the round table by the door. And we'll start with I, and then you, we, all, and we'll come back to I, to the self again. And so maybe you can, if you want, you can put your hand on your heart or on that place of the body that needs some additional love and kindness. And taking a moment to turn towards yourself. And for those of you on Zoom, I'll put the words in the chat. And as we turn our attention to ourselves, I invite you to touch into any sense of friendliness or warmth or goodness inside of you. May I be filled with love and kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. And may I be happy. May you be filled with love and kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. And may you be happy. May we be filled with love and kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. And may we be happy. May all be filled with love and kindness. May all be well. May all be peaceful and at ease. with love and kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. And may I be happy. Noticing what's here for you now. Sensing into the mood, the tone of this moment. And as your awareness opens up to take in the view, the environment, the space around you. As the eyes open, can you maintain this energy of mindfulness? This quality of meditation that now moves from our formal practice to informal practice, where we open up and be with what's around us as we go into some mindful movement that Glenn will be offering us today. And so we'll move into this practice for, say, 15 minutes. Sure. Yes. So Glenn will come up front. And Glenn, if you can introduce yourself, I think everyone would love to hear who you are.
Okay. And I can obviously hear myself in the space. Can you guys on Zoom hear me all right? Margaret or Sandra, do you hear me? Okay. Okay. How's that? Good? Okay. Great. All right. Perfect. All right. Well, hello everyone. My name is Glenn, and it's my first time with this group. I've been practicing yoga and meditation and those kind of things pretty seriously for the last few years, so hopefully I've got enough material to get through 15 minutes here. Does anyone that's here in the room have any particular physical limitation that they want to share about or to be considered? No one has anything to say at all, but I don't want anyone to feel left out. None of this will be very intense or anything. And then if there's anybody online, just feel free to really trust whatever signals your body is asking for. And if, for example, if you are in a chair and not standing up and the rest of us are standing, your body will have an answer for how to modify. So for those of us that are here, if you would join me just standing up for a moment. And I realize everyone might not be in their yoga clothes, so we won't be doing any wide leg forward folds or any skandasana, anything too fancy. But let's just start with palms pressed together at heart. And then for just a moment, let the eyes flutter closed. And listen inwards to any sensations arising from the body. The feeling of the breath as it moves in the nostrils. heart beating against the sternum, blood swirling in the veins, the warmth of the palms pressing together, and the strength of the legs moving into the soles of the feet against the earth. And inviting the eyes to flutter open, and exhaling, let the hands fall to the sides. On the inhale, slowly the hands sweep up overhead, and fingertips or palms might touch, reaching gently with the heart toward the sky. And on the exhale, softening in the knees and the hips, and folding forward. And the palms might find the thighs or the shins, and inviting the breath to be steady and even, and keeping a generous bend in the knees. Feeling the invitations of time and gravity. Pulling gently at the arms, the back. Let the head hang heavy. With each inhale, feeling the length of the spine flooding with softness and light. And with the exhales, letting go of any tension that doesn't serve this shape in the body as it is today. Roll around the breath here. And when you're ready, after the exhale, a little deeper into the knees, slowly rising up to stand, uncurling the arms sweep overhead. And on the exhale, bending the knees, keeping the head upright, and the arms fall softly next to the feet. Standing up again, fingertips in towards each other. Imagine gathering a ball of light, and bringing that ball all the way up to the sky. And the exhales, softening the joints, the hips, the knees, the ankles, and the fingertips come toward the earth. Maybe they touch down, maybe not. Inhale, fingers to each other, gathering that ball energy, holding it up toward the sky. And on the exhales, softening down, moving at the speed of your own breath here. You might imagine as you rise a carefully gathered pile of leaves, scooping, lifting them upwards and offering the leaves into the wind. Here, the speed of offering those leaves into the sky and the wind. Just gently pumping the blood and the lymph and the energies through the body. And when ready, returning to that upright stand, palms pressed together. And then sweep the arm overhead. And then bend the right elbow. Take hold of the right elbow. And spending just a couple of breaths here, really listening in to the upper back and into that right arm, soft and aware, looking for those little muscles trying to help and don't know what to do. Just telling them to take a break. Noticing how the body finds room for the breath in this shape. And finding one more full round of breath here. And then after the exhale, on the next inhale, reach both arms high for a moment, tilt the chin upwards, lifting the heart toward the sky. And then on the exhale, now bending that left elbow. And the right hand takes hold of the elbow. Just finding this same stretch on this side. Just taking a few breaths here. Listening inward, the muscles of the upper back, the neck, and the arms. If you notice any muscles trying to work overtime, just remind them that they're here on salary and there's no extra, no need for them to work too hard. And taking 2 more full rounds of breath here. When you're ready, after the exhale, on the next inhale, both arms reach high again. And then stepping the feet out just a little while the arms slide down. Again, bending the hips softly. See if the fingertips can find the earth. If that's just a little too deep, the back doesn't like that, the palms on the shins or grab hold of the calves. And then here, exhaling to prepare on the inhale, lifting the hips and straightening the legs. And on the exhale, lowering the hips down toward the earth. And continuing at the speed of your own breath with each inhale, lifting the hips high. With each exhale, lowering the hips downwards, maybe a little further. Just exploring the edges here, allowing your own breath to dictate the speed and the pace, and maybe adjusting feet inward or outward, and moving with no particular rush towards the squat. You maybe you land all the way down in a Malasana squat, or you might stay a little higher, hands on the knees. Feel steady and comfortable in your body as it is today. And if you're all the way down in the squat, those forward, fold. And as the torso finds that edge of resistance, let the hands keep drifting, and the palms might find the shins or the thighs, and bending into the knees a bit. And maybe the fingertips make it to the earth, or rest on the legs. And just listening into the body, noticing any places in the legs or the back where there's a little extra sensation. And resting the awareness there as you breathe. And finding 2 more full rounds of breath here. And when you're ready, after the exhale, bending into the knees, inhale, rise to standing, palms touch overhead, and then uncrossing that left ankle, and then now swinging the right in front of left, and inhale, reach high, and the exhale, folding forward, soften the knees. And as the torso finds the edge of resistance, then the hands keep drifting. And just like the first side, maybe they come to rest on the shin, or maybe the fingertips, or even the palms find the earth. And as you breathe here, continuing to scan the legs or the back, any spots where a little more sensation is arising. And resting the awareness there. And finding 2 more full rounds of breath here. And when you're ready, after exhale, knees, rising upwards, arms overhead, and then exhale, bringing the hands to heart center and untangling the legs. And then either keeping the palms in front of the chest or just with hands at sides, then rising up onto the balls of the feet and lowering the heels. Just feeling that little squeeze in the middle of the calf, and then setting back down. And bringing the awareness in the feet. If there's any soreness in the calves, you could also simply raise one heel at a time. Just dial in for that level where there's some sensation, a little bit of juiciness, but stopping short of anything painful. And then coming to rest on all the surfaces of the feet. And inhale, bring the arms into a cactus shape. And then on the exhale, crossing the left arm underneath the right and taking hold of opposite shoulders. The inhale, lifting with the elbows, Slightly tilting the chin upwards. Feel the heart reach high. And with the exhale, tucking the chin and curling the elbows in toward belly button. Inhale, the elbows glide up, chin tips slightly upwards. And exhale, chin tucks and elbows curl toward the belly button. And the next inhale, letting go of the grip, bring the arms back into that wide cactus, heart high. And on the exhale now, bringing the right arm underneath the left, taking hold of the shoulders once again. Inhale, the elbows lift, the chin tilts, the heart reaches toward the sky. On the exhale, the chin softly tucks, and the elbows curl in toward the belly button. Inhale, elbows lift, chin tilts, heart reaches high. And exhale, chin tucks, elbows curl toward the belly button. And the next inhale, bring the arms wide, cactus one more time. And then on the exhale, bringing hands to heart center. And again, closing the eyes for a moment. Listening inwards, any sensations arising from the body. Breath in the nostrils. Blood in the veins. Warmth in the palms. I think that's about 15 minutes. Thank you very much, you guys. A pleasure to share with you all.
I must say that I have to make a pitch for the practice of yoga as a practice that allows us to cultivate mindfulness of body and breath. And I started incorporating yoga as a regular practice in 2020, and it has been a game changer for my meditation practice, because a lot of times we are so we live in our minds, so there's a lot of cerebral activity, and it's hard for us to connect to the body. And yoga is the practice that allows us to get in touch with sensation and being able to be with strong, intense sensation and breathe through it. And so through the practice of yoga, I found that I can endure the difficult emotions and sensations that come up in my meditation in a way that it's like, oh, I learned it through yoga and through movement, so I can apply it here, and here's how it looks like. Breathing through it, letting the breath release the tension, right? Because a lot of times with yoga, what we notice is when those posture gets really tight, we hold our breath. And so that remembrance to breathe allows us to release and soften. So I encourage you to, if you want to take your meditation practice to the next level, to also incorporate yoga as part of the practice, and that will also allow a deeper understanding of sensations, and we start working with these more intense and strong sensation, and then in our meditation we're working with more subtle sensations that arise. Yeah, so thank you, Glenn. That was really lovely. Yeah.
Pleasure.
Thank you. So today I wanted to speak on this path of practice. Can everyone on Zoom hear me okay, Sandra? The sound is not that clear. Okay, let me see if I can turn. How about now? Is that better? Let's see. Actually, the Zoom is this one. Okay. Is that better, Sandra? Let's see if she can hear me. Testing. How's that, Sandra? Can you hear me okay? Okay, that's good. All right. Okay, I see. Thank you. So growing up, I was born into a Buddhist family in Vietnam, and while I was raised here in the US, I identify with Buddhism as a philosophy, a way to live life. And I thought, wow, these teachings are so wonderful. This is the way I will live life, right? This, following these ideas, these sets of teaching. And only until in 2012 or so, I began, really on my spiritual journey that led me to the path. And so I want to talk about what that is, the path. In preparing for this talk, I was thinking about what makes a difference between when someone views Buddhism as a philosophy versus viewing Buddhism as the path. And so the word philosophy, the literal translation of the word philosophy is the love of wisdom. Right? So we're kind of, in a way, we love the ideas, the concepts, these set of teachings. We love it. Okay, yeah, that's great. And we might analyze it, reason with it. And what makes it different when we practice meditation, we are now on the path of wisdom. So you see the difference, right? So there's the love of wisdom, which is philosophy, and then there's the path of wisdom, which is this journey that we're on, this unfolding, this, deepening, this expansion. And I had a couple of friends who when they learned about the Noble Eightfold Path, one of them's, it's like, I love everything the Buddha says. It makes so much sense. And this is the path I'm going to practice. But for them, it's still more of a sense of, I like these ideas. These are great. They don't practice with a Sangha. They're not taking refuge in the Triple Gem. So it's kind of like this practice that's there on the side. I like it. I agree with these ideas. And then there's another friend who says, my gosh, this path is amazing. I practice meditation, but there's just so much to do. There's this, and this. There's 8 of this, 10 of that, 5 of the other. I can't do them all. I only have 30 minutes every day for my meditation practice. How can I do all of this? So I was reflecting on that. I see Kimberly's laughing too. And I actually brought, my own reflection of this to a teacher that I was with on retreat. And this path gives us a framework for how to move through the world. And it begins with first recognizing the dukkha, So dukkha is the Pali word for suffering, but it's also translated in other ways as stress, as dissatisfaction, as just the struggle, the tension. So if you notice when you were sitting here during meditation, you know, that moment where you moved, that's dukkha. Because it's just like, it doesn't feel right. I don't like this, so I'm going to shift my posture. Or it feels uncomfortable, that's dukkha. Right? And then that's on a smaller level. And then we're also talking about the dukkha of everyday life, gains and loss. You know, having a good reputation and then having a bad reputation. The, you know, pleasure and then the pain. Not getting what we want. Not being with people we want to be with. Being with people we don't want to be with. So all of this, the dukkha of our lives, you know, how do we manage that? It's this constant flow. And when we want things to stay, the good stuff to stay the same, and then they don't, right? How do we, or the things that we want change and they just won't change? How do we, you know, how do we live in a way that, if we go back to the loving kindness song, you know, that vow of, may I be filled with loving kindness, may I be well. So that's a commitment, but on this path, those things actually become a vow, an internal vow that we take, a vow towards our own well-being, a vow towards the well-being of those around us, you know, a vow towards ease and peace. And so that is what orients us to speak and think and act in different ways. So this morning I received a text from my roommate, and usually when I'm in the shower I floss, and so I left a piece of floss on the wall or on the tiles, and she had said something about this before, and I was like, yes, I remember. Oh, you know where this is going, right? And I got a text in the morning. We never text. We always like meet in the kitchen, hi, hello, hug, and then, you know, go off our ways. And she texted me this morning saying, can you clean out the shower, you know, so I can shower? And I was like, uh-oh. I was like, what did I do? And then I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I did it, didn't I? I did it again. I said, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Oh, you know, won't do it again. But what I will do this time is I just won't floss in the shower. So problem solved. Like, I'm already figuring out the solution. Here's what I'll do. And then I was thinking about the day before when a number of us here were at the funeral of one of our teacher here that sits in the seat, who had passed away. And it was a really beautiful Buddhist funeral and memorial. And one of the things that the monk invited us into was this practice of forgiveness. You know, and that when we are on this path of practice, we're always looking at how we can cause no harm, right? Mitigate any harm. So practicing non-harm. And so I had reviewed my action while this is going on this morning, and I was like, oh, I caused harm. Because she's now really upset. You know, I was like, and there's something here. I need to be more aware, I need to remember not to do anything that causes harm. As little as it is to not cause any harm. I could say, it's just a little piece of floss. Big deal, right? She's overreacting, and she'd deal with it. Let her deal with that. It's just a little piece of floss. But when we practice this path, we look at everything from that place where everything matters. Any way that we can cause harm, even a little ripple in that water that, you know, starts to ripple outward. We look at all of these things. And so I was waiting for her to come into the kitchen, because I know these things over text, they just don't go well. There was already tension. I was like, God, this feels yucky. I don't like this feeling. And what a way to start the morning. And I was like, oh, what's going on? What can I do? I'm just going to like show up and be right there in the kitchen instead of hiding in my room, right? So I just stay in the kitchen. Where is she? When is she coming? Okay, she's not around yet. I'm just going to stay in the kitchen, let her know I'm here. And then eventually she came into the kitchen. And I said again, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It impacted you, and I forgot, and I was in a hurry that day. And she's like, you forget more than you know. And I was like, well, I'm really sorry now. Now I really have a lot to think about. And then, so we made amends. And I said, I'll make sure I'll buy one of those little things to catch the hair and floss and whatnot. And then later on, we went about our day, and then we met again in the kitchen. And she came up to me, and she said, I am so sorry. I was so hard on you. I was having a really bad morning, and nothing is going my way today. And so when we are on this path, we are, whether it's just ourself and the people we are around, we're always looking at, our conduct, right? How are my action, words, and speech creating a ripple out there in the world, unknowingly or knowingly? And there's always room to refine, to, move through the world again inside of that commitment, that vow. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. And then if we wish for someone else to be peaceful and at ease, we also support that through our action as best as we can, knowing that if the person in front of us is stressed out, is, anxious about something, which I know it's going on all in her world. She's been sharing this, but I don't want to add to her suffering. I want to do whatever I can to make her suffer less through my presence, alleviating or mitigating any possibility of causing that extra bit of suffering that she doesn't need any more of. So the path, the Noble Eightfold Path there are 8 practices, but if we break them down, they're only just 3. So this is what I said to the friend that's like, oh, there's so much to remember. I was like, no, it's not 8, it's just 3. If you just remember 3, you're good. Trying to simplify. So just 3. He's like, but you always play this game because you're gonna like have a drop down and then it's gonna expand. I was like, just remember 3. And then I'll give you just remember 1 too. So we could start with 3 if the 8's too much. So the 3 aspects to remember on this path is sila, which is conduct, right, or precepts. And so when we think about conduct, first, the way we view things, right? Conduct would be our speech. Right? So our speech, and then our actions, and then livelihood, right? So the career, the work that we do in the world, is it causing harm, or is it promoting peace and well-being? And our speech. So in that moment when I received that text, I could say a number of things, right? I could bite back, or I could, this is creating some tension, I feel it. And then when understanding is present, I could see, this is much bigger than what it is, but there's something here that I don't need to, try to defend or fight or come up with an excuse. Just, I'm sorry that this is affecting you. So choosing what speech will be appropriate that will support peace and well-being and love and kindness. So that's the conduct, right? So our speech, our action, and livelihood. Just how we move through the world, really, and what what we're putting out there in the world. And then the other one is prajna, which is wisdom. So cultivating wisdom through having the right view. So the right view is basically the wise view, the view that will allow us to experience our relationships going well, or at least as best as they can be, where our heart feels complete, where we're not holding any resentment, no regrets. I'm still thinking about my friend Alpish yesterday and how this room was filled with almost 100 people that were all there who really honored this human being who really lived and cared for every single friendship, relationship in his life. And that view that he had, so that view of goodness, right? The view that there is impermanence, right, as one of the characteristics of existence. The view that of interconnectedness or interbeing, Tejikhan calls it interbeing, or in Theravada we call it no self. That there is no separate self, that we don't exist as a separate entity, that we need each other. And then the view of dukkha, the view that suffering is a part of life. We see it as we're sitting here, the dukkha that causes us to move, of our, the dukkha of just the challenges of being human, that is a part of life, the loss, the gain, the pleasure and pain, just the coming and going of things. So there's right view, and then there's right intention. So having the right intention, and our intention is what produce, the actions that leads to the results that we will have. So if you have more of an analytical mind, you might start thinking like, where am I? What boxes do I check? What part of the path do I have down? And, which part of the path do I need to kind of further refine? And that's something, I think it's good to once in a while just check in with, where am I in the path? What do I need to kind of hone in or work on a little bit more? And with the right intention, what we're looking at is cultivating wholesomeness and then abandoning unwholesomeness. And seeing it, the practice of mindfulness allows us to see unwholesome states, wholesome states, and what's also neither wholesome nor unwholesome. I won't have a lot of time to go into details because we have just 12 minutes left, so kind of just skimming the surface of this a little bit. And then there's conduct, there's wisdom, and then the other one is concentration, samadhi. And in concentration, we're working with right mindfulness, right concentration, and right effort. Right, so practicing with right mindfulness means that we're not just aware of what's going on, but we're aware of it inside of this context of, is this suffering or not suffering? Is this mine? Do I have any control over this, or do I not have any control over this? And we're also mindful of the arising and passing away of things. right? So it's not permanent, it's not personal. And it's also, so we see the nature of our mind, and we're not trying to control it, but we're able to be with it and observe it. And then the practice of meditation is where we develop that concentration to see things clearly. There's this, I just came back from a 5-day silent retreat, and this one day I was out by standing at the dock next to a pond, and just days before that it had been raining. And so on this day the rain had stopped at this moment, and there were still, droplets of rain that were had accumulated on the branches hanging over this pond. And as I stood there and looked over this pond, it was relatively still, and because I could see the reflection of the trees above and around, and it was like this beautiful mirror, shining all of the top of the trees over this pond. But if you look closely, you can see that the pond is not that still. So as I stood there in stillness, my eyes were focused on this kind of open awareness of this pond. There are like moments where droplets of water from the branch would come down and fall into this pond, and then it would create this ripple, and then another droplet of water would come down, and then this pond and create ripple. And that's like the mind having objects and impressions that come in and creating movement inside of our mind. And so mindfulness is that quality of watchfulness that can be there to observe this. We're not trying to make it go away, stop, right? Or trying to do something to like stop the droplets or make the ripples less. We're just observing what is happening. And we suffer when we don't let that just happen on its own. And we want it to be some other way. We want that water, that pond to be still. We want the water to be clear. And it's just not. We're able to just be with what is. And so there was a moment where there were a couple of droplets that came down almost at the same time, and you could see the way the ripples crashed into each other and overlapped. And I just imagine when we are restless and we have so much going on in there, so much constructing activities inside the mind. They're just like droplets of water just falling into this pond and rippling out in all direction. And this is what creates confusion in the mind. We cannot see clearly. So the practice of meditation allows for us to kind of rest back and see what is happening. See the characteristics of existence, of life. And we come back to be with our lives and to see deeply, to listen deeply to the sight, to the sound, to all that's there in our world. So if these three, right, sila, samadhi, and prajna, so conduct, samadhi is concentration, and wisdom, if these three are something you're like, I can't even remember that, that's too much, then the mindfulness training could be just to practice observing what is happening in the body and breath, what is happening inside, the feeling tones that are there. And then also get in touch with being able to be like that pond that you can see what's going on in the mind without attaching and identifying with it, right? So just through your meditation practice, just cultivating the foundations of mindfulness, and then reflecting on the characteristics of suffering, of no self or interbeing, and then on impermanence. And so that will take you onto the path. So the path will, almost like you will attune to the path of right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness and right concentration, just by way of the practice of meditation and cultivating mindfulness in daily life. So I said to that friend who was like, oh, there's so many lists I have to remember, I need to cultivate all these qualities. It's like, that's a lot. It's like, that's a lot, Trina. I can't do all that. It makes sense that I can't do all of that. I said, just start by practicing mindfulness in every moment as best as you can, to be present, to be deeply in touch with each moment. And that alone will anchor you, will move you in that direction of the path. Because it's when we forget, right? Mindfulness is remembering. And when we're not mindful, we forget. So we forget this body's right here. This moment is like this. And we forget the path. We forget where we are. So before like I said before, I was on this, knew to be the path, my path. Buddhism was these ideas. It sounded really good. I really like it. I agree with it. It made sense to me. But then when I saw myself, when I had my first spiritual awakening and I found myself on this path, it was that moment of this is the way to be, the way to move through the world. These are sets of practices that the Buddha developed systematically. There are many traditions with philosophies and ideas, but here Buddhism is the path. Thich Nhat Hanh calls it, Buddhism is a device. It's a device to alleviate suffering. It's a device a path that will directly lead to liberation, here and now. And so any moment that we capture, we touch into that stillness, that steadiness, that's a moment where we experience a taste of liberation, a taste of freedom. And then if that's too much, then I would just say, go back to the loving kindness practice and hold that as your vow. That's your commitment. So anytime, okay, may I be filled with loving kindness. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be well. And then, okay, if that vow is also towards everyone around us, how would we say if our commitment is towards their well-being, towards their peace, towards offering them ease? What will we say? What will we do? What will we restrain from saying? Right? Where will we pause? Where will we step back and let them be? So I'm giving some options for how to practice, and for some people, I was asked the question about my friend Tuere, my teacher on the retreat, and she said, those who are into the Noble Eightfold Path and views this, likes the list and the steps and the systematic approach are folks who are more into the wisdom side of the path of practice. And if that doesn't work, we have another way to practice for those who are more into the heart side. So I would say maybe like empaths are more into the heart side of the practice, which is loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. And even through that path, we can still access the Noble Eightfold Path. Okay. So I know we have just some minute left. I wanted to Margaret, I think I saw your hand up.
Well, yeah. I love what you've been saying, especially about how, remembering to come back. But the way I just wanted to mention the way that I learned, among doing other tools that I learned to, plant the information in my mind. But the framework of Sila Samadhipanya, I simply learned as a three-legged stool. They support, the stool, and so that was an easy way to realize that they work together, and they work beautifully. So,
Yes.
yeah, thank
Yes. Thank you so much. Yes, Sila, Samadhi, and Praja.
you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's how I remember it too. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Go. Yeah. Yeah. Yesterday, one of the things in the growing up in the Vietnamese Buddhist culture and tradition is when there's a death in the family or some troubled time that a family's going through, the family would seek to the monastics for guidance. And one of the things that the monastic would say is, to encourage the family to undertake the 5 precepts, what we did at the beginning. And the reason for that is when we practice and we undertake that training of the 5 precepts and we hold it close to us, we're practicing non-harming. And if we're already suffering, we want to reduce that suffering as much as possible. And through the practice of non-harming, we are reducing suffering, but we're also cultivating goodness. Goodness within ourselves, goodness for everything and everyone around us. So, choosing maybe even just one of the pillars to practice with could also be a way that your path can unfold, right? So you don't have to try to hit all of it, but just, and for me, at the beginning, I knew when I first got into the path that it was through this foundation of the 5 precepts, the conduct. That's one thing I can change immediately, right? It's like, okay, well, I can start right there. That's on the outside. That's the external. And then the other states are a little more subtle and refined. So the preliminary is conduct. And then from there, we work with the more, developed mental states, with mindfulness and concentration. Any comments or questions or anything anyone would like to say? Rob, can you grab the mic?
Okay, I think one thing that I really appreciate is that with wisdom, action, and concentration, I don't see them really as separate things. Like they're like circles that overlap partly, and so wisdom can inform your action, and concentration can support the wisdom and the mindfulness part.
Right.
So it feels much more organic to me that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for anyone on the path, when you start with where you are, you have some balance of all 3 of those. It may just be kind of working through that and developing that.
Yeah, I appreciate
And I'm
you
speaking
saying.
for myself.
No, you're great. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of us here can relate. And the 8 qualities or steps, it can be qualities that we develop, or they can actually be practices that we undertake. So depending on where we read it in the sutras, they are practices and qualities, right? So even loving kindness, it's a quality that we generate, but it also is a practice. Or generosity, right? So we practice it, and then that quality develops. in us. So we don't have to wait for, okay, I don't have that yet in me. I can still carry that action out, and then that quality arise. And that's what the cultivation is. You know, meditation is cultivating. So, oh, I think I see Sandra's hand.
Yes. Can I ask a question about that?
Yes,
So when we're sitting in mindfulness, we're watching the breath and we're seeing what comes up. When the Buddha taught to his monastics, cultivate this quality, did they sit in meditation thinking about that? Or was that something that they did proactively? I mean, I know that I can cultivate generosity or cultivate um, loving kindness in my daily life. You know, when I'm feeling particularly squirrely or something bad has occurred, I'll go out and make a kudos to a colleague, and it makes me feel good by thinking of someone else and giving them a good compliment or something. But when the Buddha was talking about those things to monastics, are they doing that cultivation in meditation or not? And is that something that we should take into our meditation, or simply practicing seeing what arises and gaining some insight there? Can you expound on that?
yeah, uh, it's going to be very brief, but as you know, I think the first thing to acknowledge is that the monastics have been training in conduct, right? So in ethical conduct already, and so the foundation, they've laid a strong foundation for their practice, so that things that arise in their mind maybe is, I wouldn't say it's like not as challenging, but what we face as householder or lay practitioner is that we're still navigating right conduct, right? And so the things that arise in our mind are going to be a lot more gnarly, so to speak. You know, there's just, it's just a lot, there's going to be a lot, it's going to have more of a charge to it, you know? And with living a more simple life, like, you know, living in the forest or somewhere remote in the mountain, you know, the environment is really conducive for practice. So we do, you know, there's some things that we are up against as far as how to swim upstream when, you know, around us everyone is going this way and we're like trying to go that way, right? So, so really, and it's not to say that it's not possible for us. It is possible. So many practitioners have experienced that deep, abiding peace that can, basically what we're doing is, as householder, we're growing our capacity to be with all the difficulties of life. So, you know, so it's not like we get overwhelmed and flooded by it and then we just lash out because it's just too much, but our mindfulness of that is there too. Okay, I you know, when I went into my retreat, I said to my teacher, I said, I've reached full capacity, and I'm well aware I've reached full capacity. And then there's something that is happening, is that I also am in touch with, there's this awareness underneath that can hold all of that. Like I'm present to reaching full capacity, and then there's this underneath that, oh, that it can hold all of that. So mindfulness allows us to be aware of when we reach that threshold and knowing when to stop and look deeply and go back to tend and take care of ourselves and pause and find that steadiness that's underneath all of the movement. Did that answer your question?
I think so. Thank you.
Yeah. And there's some section in the sutra that talks about the time when the Buddha presented the Noble Eightfold Path to the monks, to the bhikkhus, and I could share that with you offline, Sandra. Yeah, that if you want to read the sutra, yeah. So everyone, I just wanted to thank you all for joining me in the practice and for coming together to share this practice with each other. It's each of your practice here and your presence here that make the space what it is, you know, and we can practice alone and we can get so far, but together we can go a lot further and deeper, right? So coming together like this is so precious. For Saturday evening, you could be anywhere, you could be doing anything, and you chose to be here. So I just want to acknowledge that part of you that feels called to the path, and that how wonderful that we get to be here together. And do you wanna give the Dana talk, or like me to? Okay. Yeah. Here. Or you can summarize. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Please. Please.
Okay, so the tradition of dana in the Buddhist life is really to give freely, and the benefits of that generosity is kind of the what really kind of radiates, and it's not about, you know, the particulars. It's about the intention behind your action, and that's, you know, kind of part of what Trina was speaking about today. So whether it's financial or if you have the intention to help but cannot, that's wonderful and beautiful. And if you have an interest in helping in some other way, you know, we are a growing little organization and we love volunteers, so that's even more precious for us, to be honest. So I love to keep the Dana talk very short and sweet. So it's probably today's the perfect day for it since we're running out of time. So also you gave to just be here tonight. So I thank you for that. We're really grateful.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah, so we do have a QR code up there if you'd like to donate, and then also cash a little box. One of my teacher says, you know, in this cycle of giving and receiving, she says, don't leave a place where you receive something freely without giving something back, right? Anything, just something, right? So that was her words, and I really resonated with that, because sometimes we freeze. We're like, how much? What should I give? How? You know, and then we don't. But give something, anything. And so that was a tip from her that just really resonated with me through the years. Yeah, and doing it with joy, with the sense, wow, I receive, and here's what I offer with my heart. And so for those of you on Zoom, you can log on to pnwmeditation.org/Dana, and there you can also get the QR code to our PayPal, Zelle, and Venmo. And next week we have a guest teacher here, Kirsten, who is, wow, she's in this world of mindfulness around environment and be giving a really phenomenal talk. She's an outstanding teacher, and I believe she does eco-chaplaincy work as well. Yeah, so please come join. That's next week, right? Is that Kirsten? Yeah. Okay, I just want to make sure. Yeah.
And if you sign up with your email, you'll get a newsletter that kind of gives those details.
Yeah. Yep, that's right. So sign up with the newsletter, and these talks will be on our YouTube channel. So if you subscribe, you'll see the latest talk, and you can also go back and view old talks. It's so good to see everyone. I'm so happy you're all here. I just want to get to know all of you, especially those faces that I haven't had a chance to really spend time with. But I'll be, you know, wrapping up. Feel free, if you could help me put the chairs away, and we can connect while we're cleaning up the place. But thank you, everyone. And thank you, everyone on Zoom. Kimberly, good to see you, sis. Glad you came. I can't see her, but you see her name.
Kimberly.
All right, ready for takeoff to infinity and beyond.